is Maximus Decimus Meridius.
I am your father.
You like Huey Lewis on the news?
Yes. And you're not sure about this, are you?
You're gonna die, clown!
What's the most you ever lost on a coin toss? Sir? The most you ever lost on a coin toss. Call it.
Whose motorcycle is this?
It's a chopper, baby.
Whose chopper is this?
Zed's.
Who's Zed?
Zed's dead, baby.
Bring out today!
This is a tasty burger.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Welcome to the fucking show.
Welcome to See What Sticks, a podcast about everything and nothing. I am Ben.
Hi, I'm Russell. Ben's opening the show now.
I've usurped the king.
Yeah,
Call me the Kingslayer.
You are the Kingslayer. This is your podcast now. Have fun. There's a lot of dumb paperwork. I'm
going to take this damn thing off the rails.
Yeah, we're going to run this straight into the ground. Ben, how's your week?
It's been a week. Nothing good, nothing bad. It's just been a week.
Yeah, I understand. Sometimes those are okay to have, like the forgettable weeks. Yeah, it's better than having a real shit week.
That's true.
I'd rather have a forgettable week than a garbage week.
Yeah, the forgettable week just kind of like makes everything go by that much faster.
Yeah, it really does. Like you like blink and you're like, oh, it's Thursday, and you're like, thank God.
Yeah.
I think
ready for the weekend. What are your weekend plans?
What are my weekend plans? I honestly this weekend don't really have anything crazy eventful. Just kind of hanging out, you know. Like there's nothing big. Seeing movies. That's about it. I don't know. I wish I had something profound to say about my weekend where I'm like, oh, I'm going to a concert. I'm going to do this. Unfortunately, this weekend it's a movie weekend. I rebought Watchmen, the comic. Because my copy of it or my like novelization of it was taken from me, and now I had to go to a comic book store right by where I work. They didn't have any in stock because they were just bought up because the new Watchmen series is coming out on HBO, so people are like buying them. So I had to order one specifically, and I think it should be in tomorrow. So I'm gonna grind away at that this weekend.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a pretty quick read.
It is. It really
especially
is.
Especially having read it before and enjoying it. Oh, yeah. It'll be a breeze again to get through.
Oh, I think most definitely. I think something we should start doing is maybe at the end of episodes we should do like a top 5 list or like top 5 graphic novel to movie adaptations or maybe next week let's try that or like top 5 comics or movies. Or top 5 like comics or like pieces of literature you wish were a good movie or a movie.
Okay.
I think that'd be something interesting.
Always number one is why can't they make a good Fantastic Four film?
Oh my god. Hey, now that Disney owns everything, maybe they'll make a good one.
I would hope that's like that conversation has come up at some point.
Oh, that's probably the first thing they said when they bought 20th Century Fox is, what are we going to do with Fantastic Four? And are we going to recast Hugh Jackman? Or are we going to recast Wolverine? Those are the two first conversations.
I think they need to wait on doing anything with Wolverine for a long time. Like, Logan was like the best like swan song they could have done.
Oh, yeah. I think if anybody else right now, it will be one of those things where you can't like fill those shoes. Like, there's just no way.
Right.
What's that guy's name who played Mr. Fantastic in the Fantastic Fours with Chris Evans? It's
who was that?
He has a really odd name. It's like Yule or something.
I shall look it up.
Yeah.
While you ramble on.
Okay, so yeah, That guy was actually an okay casting, looks-wise, for Mr. Fantastic, but, I don't know. Did you even see Fanforstic, the remake?
No.
I saw pieces of it. I've never seen the whole thing, and from what I've seen, it just looks like trash. It looks like a bad fan film.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything good about it, and I didn't expect anything good about it, so I was just like, we'll just go ahead and...
Did you ever see Chronicle, the movie?
I did, yeah. I actually enjoyed that.
Yeah, Josh Trank, who directed that, did Fanforstic, and just completely fucked it. And did not stick the landing in any way. It was, from all accounts, a complete disaster. What's that guy's name?
His name is... I don't even know how to pronounce that first name. It's Ioan. Like, is it like Ian? Ian? Just a stupid way of spelling Ian?
Ioan.
Ioan.
Ewan.
Ewan Grufford.
Oh, it's Yoan. It's Yoan.
Yoan Grufford? Gruffood?
Yeah, that's guy. I was close. Yeah, it's Yoan is how you say it. I think it's like...
Yeah.
It's a European name.
He's from Wales, so it's Welsh.
Ah, it's Welsh. That's why. Yeah, it's a Welsh name. Yeah, I knew he had a funky name, but he, like, looks-wise, is the right casting for Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah, he's pretty inconspicuous.
Yeah. He can be a very much like a that guy, scientist-y kind of superhero thing. It was just trash.
Right. It was really, like, kind of its time, that mid to late 2000s era with, like, Jessica Alba, young, still relatively not super popular Chris Pine, or Chris Evans, excuse me.
And Michael Chiklis as the Thing.
And Chiklis, yeah, as the Thing.
In that weird suit, that weird, definitely rubber rock suit that looked horrible. Yeah.
Yeah, the less said about those movies, the better. And yeah, hopefully if Disney does decide to get on with the last major, like, Marvel franchise that hasn't really been done by Disney.
Yeah.
Then hopefully they'll take some time with it and put some good minds behind the production.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? I think now that Marvel owns all of Marvel's properties again, do you think maybe 30 years in the future they'll redo Civil War, but like the comic book version, now that they actually own all the characters? Or they'll redo Old Man Logan with all the characters?
It would not surprise me just for like a money-making move on their part. And I mean, hell, how many, just, you know, if we're talking re-adaptations or just redos of any properties in the past 20 years, how many different Batmans have we had? How many different Spider-Mans have we had? So, you know, it's just going to keep going in this circle because they're marketable properties.
Yeah.
They're going to bring in a good draw.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think, like, comic book movies, you know, like how the Western was like a genre and like World War II movies and like that whole thing. The interesting thing about comics is technically they're just movies based off books. And the thing about comics that I find interesting is that there's alternate universes in comics and there's alternate storylines. So you can, in theory, just keep making them forever because these comics have been around forever and there's a gajillion different issues. So you can make a gajillion different movies, and people have been buying comic books, and that's been a successful industry up and down. And then just putting them on the big screen, it just is like kaboom, genius. Like we hit the jackpot.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept to like try to give the creative reins to different, you know, if we're just sticking with straight up comic books, giving them to different authors, you know, letting them to put their own spin on something that's been around forever.
Yeah.
You know, if they have something cool and interesting to do with an old character and they can make it fresh again, you know, go for it. And I feel the same way about like filmmakers too. If they have a fresh take on an old property, then, you know, why not? You know, as long as you either stick with kind of like the the character and what they're all about, or
Yeah.
if you have a good reason for changing like this character's personality or what they're all about. Like say Batman,
Definitely.
you know, everyone knows like Batman's kind of style is like, you know, vigilante justice, doesn't kill. That's just like one of his codes. But like, I think I think it would be pretty difficult to come up with an excuse for it where it's okay for Batman to just like straight off in criminals.
Yeah, I think the only version of that is like the Thomas Wayne Batman from Flashpoint, where they have his dad become Batman instead of him, and he's just legitimately a psychopath who just murders people. And that'd be a cool thing to see on screen, is a version of Batman who is just straight up killing people with like zero remorse because he lost his son. He has nothing to lose. And I think eventually they're going to do Flashpoint. I think like DC's like, okay, we got to reset all of this shit. Like, we have made a bunch of mistakes. Here's how we're going to do it.
Right. I think, yeah, and we've touched on this in a past episode. Like, DC really needs to just like go back to basics and start introducing these characters again in their own films. Like, you know, jumping straight into a Justice League film only after like what, three different individual movies. One of them being like, you know, Batman v Superman. It's just they tried to capitalize on the Avengers formula far too quickly.
Yeah, and I think Justice League, if they just waited for Marvel to like finish with Endgame and then go into another valley to build back up, DC could have struck while like the iron was like cold, so to speak, and been like, boom, now we have our thing. And so they battle against each other. And so they like pick up where the other one falls. And I think that could have happened if you had different minds in charge.
Right. It almost makes me want a third player in this sort of comic universe rivalry.
Yeah.
I want, you know, I don't know who that would be because, you know, you have DC, you have Marvel. They are big.
Yeah, you could do like independent, so you could do like Dark Horse, or you could do like the other independent comic series, but there's not really an extended universe in that way. Is
Dark Horse?
No, Dark Horse is part of DC.
I was gonna say, I thought that they're kind of like DC's like kind of Fox Searchlight.
Yeah,
like,
isn't there almost. Image Comics? Is that the independent one? Let me look.
Image. I forget whether they're still their own thing or not.
Let me look. Independent comic publishers.
I want to say Image has been bought, but okay. I could be wrong.
As everyone, okay, so we have Image Comics and Dark Horse are both, and then we have Dawn, then we have Aftershock, we have Boom, we have Apple Comics, we have Malibu, we have DC. So they're all different companies.
Okay, I thought Dark Horse was under the DC.
I think they probably are.
Umbrella. Okay.
Someone out there knows. I know my buddy Curtis, who listens to this, is like the biggest comic book fan I know. He's probably listening to this and screaming at his like headphones or whatever he's listening to this on. He's like, "Idiots! It's this!" And I'm sorry. As you can tell, comics are my my social like and like pop culture weak point. Like, I know a lot about comics, but if you ask me publisher questions, it's not like movie studios for me. I'm like, I know a few of the names, but I'm not an expert like that.
Right.
But yeah, shout out to those people. Also, we had that Comic-Con episode, like literally, like actually, like 50 episodes ago, and we interviewed a few comic book artists. Shout out to you guys if you listen. Thank you. But yeah, so you were touching on how DC should probably make individual properties and individual characters. We might be getting that. They might be listening to you, Ben. We'll get to that later. Ben, we have news this week. This is our thing now. We have a lot of news this week, and then we're going to get into a different topic that we kind of already hit on there. So Ben, what is our first piece of news for this week?
I think we have it listed as Avengers Endgame pre-sale tickets.
Yes.
This is a big deal. It set a new single-day record for pre-sale tickets through Fandango and other ticket pre-ordering sites and was even like crashing the sites.
Yeah. It's over $800 million.
Ridiculous.
Something needs to fucking beat Avatar. Please let this be the thing. Please, God.
You mean as far as like total overall box office?
Yeah. Please let this be the thing.
Oh, if it's already like at 800 million in pre-sales, like it's on. I can't see it not getting or overtaking Avatar.
This is saying a lot. Avatar is something at like 2 point something billion, right? This movie, if it's almost at $1 billion and no one's even seen the movie yet, this could be the $3 billion.
Right.
This has a shot at being that.
It really does. The only thing I could see as being its detriment is how long it is. If people do pay attention to run times and do look at that before they buy their ticket or whatever, if people see like, do I really want to sit through like a 3.5 hour movie? Because like, as much as some people really like to go to see movies and love superheroes and love the Avengers itself, like I can see a lot of people being like, no thanks, I'm going to wait.
Yeah, wait till it's on like the Disney streaming service, or if it goes to Netflix first or whatever. Yeah, that's the only thing running against it. But I think this movie, what's going to happen, besides this movie probably going to knock it out of the park because Marvel's very good at doing that, I think Thanos, this is just my suspicion, will get defeated earlier in the film than we think.
I've seen that prediction also elsewhere on the internet as well, and that the remainder of the movie is going to be like kind of a dealing with the fallout of how do we get the half of the universe back. Yeah.
And then my next question is, do you think they'll set up for another big bad guy like a Galactus or something like that?
I think they have to.
Yeah.
I think that in order to kind of keep people wanting more, even though we've just got to the end of this like epic, 14 movie buildup?
Yeah.
Something like that. Like they're going to say like, hey, I just cannot see the filmmakers not putting in something that says like, hey, we got you ready to come back for the next round.
Yeah. Or do you think they won't kill Thanos in this one? Like somehow, like, you know, in Superman, there's like the Phantom realm, like where they're in like the old movies, they're in like the mirror. Do you think they're going to banish Thanos to like the quantum realm? Like get rid of his gauntlet, put him in the quantum realm, and somehow maybe 10 movies down the line he breaks his way back out?
I don't know. That one I really couldn't say. It feels like the stakes are almost like too high in order to let him live.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Also, that kind of goes against the like more the justice aspect. Like, do the remaining Avengers see like Thanos' death as the only sort of just way of avenging, no pun intended, everything that was lost?
Yeah, I feel like what would happen, and here's just like a theory before we move on to our next thing, is they would like try to kill him, and then maybe Doctor Strange somehow comes back, which he is going to, spoiler, because he has another movie coming out, unless it's a prequel. But I feel like if Doctor Strange comes back, he's going to be like, no. He's more like benevolent. And he's going to be like, there's another way to do this. And somehow they like remove all of his power magically. Or like they do like a frozen in carbonite kind of thing with Han Solo.
Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, we have, 2 weeks to find out? 2 or 3 weeks, I think.
I'm itching to find out more. So I'm hyped. I don't know if anyone out there listening can tell. Ben and I are stoked to see this film.
Yes. What do we got next?
Annabelle 3 trailer.
Yes. I have not seen any of the Annabelle movies. The only 2 movies in this like sort of Conjuring universe that I've seen are the 2 Conjuring movies.
Actually, I saw one of the Annabelle movies. I saw 40% of one of them because it played before it. I went to see it at a drive-in movie theater.
Ah, okay.
So I saw part of one of the Annabelle movies. I saw the end. Okay, it looks like a horror movie. But the trailer for this actually looks scary.
Does it? Okay. I heard that the second Annabelle, or I think I saw like better review scores for the second one compared to the first one.
Yeah.
Which is always interesting as far as sequels for horror movies go.
I think we're at this like point in our horror movie consumption as a society where we're getting really good ones like Us, and we're getting a Get Out, we're getting It, and then we're going to talk about It Chapter 2. But then there's also these ones that are kind of left over from like maybe the earlier 2000s, like an Annabelle or like Saw, or these things that they kind of just keep churning out. But then we're also getting like a Pet Sematary, which people are like going nuts over. So I think these movies are going to either have to like step up or get out of the way.
Yeah, when it's not like original pieces like Jordan Peele's, Get Out and Us, or stuff that's continuations of properties that are still relatively lucrative, like Annabelle and the Conjuring universe. We're starting to see more of we're going back to adaptations or remakes of old stuff like Pet Sematary, Child's Play. The new one's going to be coming out this summer. What I liked seeing, though, is, especially like you said, with Pet Sematary getting some pretty good reviews, is there's care that's going into these productions.
Yeah.
They're not just pumping out, garbage and they know it's garbage. They just know it's going to make money.
Yeah.
It appears like, there's people behind these movies that are like, hey, we grew up on the originals. We love the originals. We want to put our spin on it, and we want to, take care of these things.
Yes.
And that's what I love seeing.
Oh, 100%. I'm really, 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 really stoked to see that. And, I think and then there are also Scary Stories That We Tell in the Dark, the Guillermo del Toro written film. And I think that's just a bunch of vignettes. I never read that in high school. That was like one of those high school reading ones that was like on that list. I just didn't pick that. I had a bunch of friends who did, and they apparently loved it. So I think that has a shot as well, because like the trailer's pretty unsettling. And there's some pretty haunting stuff in there, and I think it'll be cool. Right.
I never did read the book either. And yeah, you're right. It is just a collection of vignettes, short stories. I think that's one of the best ways to present horror.
Oh, yeah.
There are a lot of horror anthology movies like VHS, the ABCs of Death, like all of those. They work so well just because horror, when you put it in too long of a format, it can lose, unless it's really carefully crafted, like masterfully crafted, really.
Yeah.
It can lose a lot of the tension, a lot of the scariest parts. Like, it just, you're stuck bogged down with these, like, exposition points or just bad pacing in between the good stuff.
Yeah.
When you shorten it down to 5 to 10 minutes or something like that, you can, turn these things out at breakneck speed and keep the tension up.
Wait, have you seen those two movies?
VHS and ABCs of Death?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've never met someone else who's seen those. And Ben and I have never talked about this off podcast. Have you ever seen, those two movies? This is one that if you guys know what I'm talking about, I'm sorry that you know what I'm talking about. And Ben, maybe do you know what a Serbian film is?
I have not seen it, but I've heard.
I have seen pieces of it from like friends. The director of that did one of the vignettes in ABCs of Death.
Right, I forget which one it was.
It's the fat one.
Okay,
I think it's that one.
I don't remember much about the ABCs of Death as much as I do about the first two VHSs.
The VHS might be one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. The original one.
Okay, have you seen the second one?
I have not seen the second one.
The second one is pretty forgettable, with the exception of one of the vignettes is done by the director of the Raid films, which are
really? Yeah.
Indonesian like martial arts movies. His one that he did for VHS 2 is a fucking masterpiece.
I'll have to go watch it.
It's crazy good.
I'm sure I can either find it or I'm down to just rent it on iTunes just to watch that piece of it. If it's a forgettable film minus like a segment, I'm down. We should talk about... I think
both have their big ups and downs.
Yeah.
Like there's a few of the stories in the first one that are kind of like, whatever. But then there's some really good ones in the first one too.
Yeah. I find it actually super interesting that you've seen ABCs of Death and VHS, because those films, even with people who do like horror, a lot of people haven't seen those two films. And they're really like, those aren't for the faint of heart.
Yeah, they're really not. Those are meant for like people that like to stick around in horror circles.
Yeah.
Because they market those with saying like, hey, these are some huge or big directors of thrillers, horror movies that you all know.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to toss them into this anthology series and let them do their thing. Let them make up some crazy shit, and y'all can enjoy.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. Especially we referenced it on last week's podcast. Ben and I and another individual are writing a film that is kind of turning into a thriller. I mean, it was sort of designed to be one, but it's turning more and more thrillery, which I find interesting. And watching more horrors and thrillers, it gives you some interesting ideas and things like, I don't want to do that because that's a trope, but I do want to try this. And it's super interesting. Also, I saw Us.
What do you think?
Yo, we have to talk about it next week. The spoiler, it's a Jordan Peele movie. It's kind of like Get Out. I think there's 2 twists in the movie. I would consider there's 2 big twists. The second twist, I saw coming. The first twist, I did not.
If we're on the same page as far as like the...
There's a switcheroo type deal.
Yeah, I also did see that coming pretty far out.
Yeah. That's the second twist. There's a first twist as like, who is us? I did not see that one coming.
Right. Well, yeah, we'll get into it.
Yeah.
Probably we'll spend a little bit of time with that next week. Yeah, there's a lot we can talk about with that one.
Okay, for sure. So next piece of news, we have Ghostbusters Part 3. That is not related to the all-female Ghostbusters cast. These are separate things.
Right. I don't know if this one is supposed to be more in line with the first 2 Ghostbusters, since it's like they're slapping a 3 on there.
Yeah, it is. It's in line with these. This movie, in my opinion, is going to be Stranger Things but Ghostbusters.
Well, I mean, it does have Finn Wolfhard.
Yeah.
And I guess the big thing about that one that came out recently was that he didn't even know he was auditioning for the role.
That's incredible. I love that. I'll go hard for Finn Wolfhard any day. That kid's awesome. So I don't know. And what are they going to do? Because Harold Ramis passed away, and they have the old cast in the movie. They're going to have to write that out.
Yeah, they'll have to do something. I mean, they'll probably do some sort of written in tribute to him as well, like acknowledging that his character has passed away or something like that.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm not really invested in this that much.
Neither am I.
At least at this point, until any sort of footage is shown. For me, it was like I honestly could not have cared less that the female version of Ghostbusters came out. I was like, yay, good. I hope it's good.
Yeah.
I really had no interest in seeing it.
Yeah.
Because at least for Ghostbusters, I was just like, let's who cares? Let it lie. And
yeah.
They did what they did. What do we have to bring it back for?
Oh, for sure. I do 100% agree with that. And I think Ghostbusters, if they redid it, which they are, I guess, doing a sequel, they have to do something so different, because the female version of the Ghostbusters was just a remake of the Ghostbusters, just swapped out. And that's not bad, but it didn't feel fresh. So they have to really do something new. Like, really, really do. Because what Ghostbusters was, it was just a bunch of exterminators in a shitty version of New York, and they were just like pest control. And that was really funny, because it's just ghost pest control. But they have to do something. They have to change it up and have a new formula, because I don't think audiences in general want to see the same thing.
At least we usually think not.
But you never know.
In cases like Star Wars or something, it turns Star Wars fans, some of the more passionate and unreasonable ones, don't know what they want. Because like after the Force Awakens, they're like, this is the same thing as A New Hope, and then
we got Last
Ryan
Jedi.
Johnson comes around with The Last Jedi, and they're like, what did you do? You changed the entire formula, and it's like, what do you people want?
Yeah, which, you know what? I like Last Jedi.
Love it.
Yeah, there was like 2 or 3 parts that I'm like, maybe not so much. There's a Princess Leia scene, for those of you who still haven't seen it, near the beginning, that was like, this is weird. But
Super
it's also,
Leia.
Yeah, Super Leia. It was weird, but it's also a Star Wars movie, so get over it.
Right.
But other than that, like the end with Luke, Yo, that was so cool. I love that. And it had the two sons. And I know J.J. Abrams is back for episode 9, and we still have heard nothing about episode 9, which is wild. I feel like
that's scheduled for December.
It's scheduled for December. Star Wars Celebration is happening in Chicago soon. I think we're going to get the first look at it with Avengers. I think that's the big trailer that they're going to have with the Avengers is going to be Star Wars.
They got to have something big with Avengers. Whether that's going to be... Oh, yeah, I don't see anything bigger than, at least a teaser.
Yeah,
for episode 9.
Even if it was something as simple as, like, let's say it was the old trilogy, and it was just, like that kind of thing, and just said Star Wars episode whatever in the name. It was just like
revealed the name, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just like that, like Darth Vader sound, or just like the lightsaber igniting, like in the forest with Force Awakens with the Kylo Ren lightsaber. That was it, and then it was just like boom, Star Wars. That's all people need. Like some crazy new thing that we've never seen before in a Star Wars thing. I think that's all that needs to happen. But yeah. So, we were talking about Ghostbusters. I have no idea what happened. But since we're talking about Star Wars, we have Mark Hamill news.
Yes, we do.
Seamless transition.
Yeah, Mark Hamill has been named, it's been revealed that he's doing the voice of the new version of Chucky in this summer's Child's Play remake.
I'm stoked.
Yeah, and for anybody that's unaware, which I'm sure most of our listening audience is aware, Mark Hamill is a very prolific voice actor.
Yes.
And a very celebrated one. He is the voice of the Joker.
Yes.
Now, like ever since the Batman the Animated Series in the 90s, he's been the voice of the Joker, I think, in most major iterations of the character. And when it's not live action.
Yeah, and if anyone's ever played the Arkham games, Mark Hamill is the Joker. And I'm stoked for Mark Hamill. And this is actually a perfect segue for our next topic.
Yes. The Joker.
The Joker. So, Ben, how much did you know about this film before this trailer dropped?
Really not a whole lot outside of like Joaquin Phoenix playing the titular Joker. Todd Phillips directing. Todd Phillips was the director for all 3 Hangover movies. He did Old School, Road Trip, I want to say was his first movie he did. It's kind of a different approach for Todd Phillips, I think, coming off of like, a lot of those college bro type of like comedies.
Yeah, because he did, The Hangover, the first one, which we all know as just kind of redefined comedies in a way. Kind of like did the formula a little different, and it made like a road trip movie. And it was a lot of, for those of you who haven't seen The Hangover, I mean, go see The Hangover, the first one. But it's like, I think we all remember it for like the Mike Tyson scene, the Ed Helms like losing the tooth, and just like everyone having a real shit time, but having it be really funny, and having Ken Jeong as kind of this like antagonist. It was just like such one of those goofy, wild ass movies that really sticks with you, and kind of was like a real like they struck gold type situation. And then the next 2, I saw 15 minutes of the second one, and I didn't realize there was a third one.
Yeah, they kind of kept declining in, I want to say, probably quality as well as people really kind of giving a shit. I think they all 3 made a lot of money.
Oh yeah,
but like the luster kind of kept getting worn off with that. And yeah, like The Hangover was like, you can kind of pinpoint as far as like comedies go, like which comedy of each decade kind of defines it. Mm-hmm. Like the 90s, it was like American Pie. Mm-hmm. Was like that was like the kind of one that to me at least, kind of defined the 90s as far as comedies. For like the 2000s, probably like Anchorman or something like that. It's something
and
like
I think then Old School.
Anchorman, yeah, Old School as well. And then for the early 2000s and I'd say probably for a big portion of the 2010s, The Hangover has been kind of like the big one.
Then you get like, I think on the back of that, you get a little bit of Pineapple Express, and you get a little of Superbad. Like, those are more for like a very specific audience of people, whereas The Hangover had much more, I think, of a general appeal. And all three of those movies are hilarious, but I think one of them, by far, popularity-wise, is above the others.
Yeah.
But, so, The Joker. This trailer reminded me a lot of the movie Nightcrawler, if you've ever seen that, with Jake Gyllenhaal. So, what did you think?
A lot different than, I guess I really didn't have any expectations other than I don't know. Like, I guess I kind of had an idea of what the trailer was going to be like, or at least I had an idea in my mind of what it was going to be like. It was going to, show like, the Joker being whatever they have him written as before, and then like Gritty coming up as like, something iconic that the Joker says. I don't know, something like that. But for I guess what we saw was different. It was really more definitely sympathetic towards. The Joker's character before he becomes the Joker.
Yeah,
Arthur
Fleck.
Arthur Fleck, yes. I think they're really going to be going into a lot of the mental aspect of why the Joker is who he is now and what kind of made him that. Yeah,
it's going to be more of like a character study about a dude going crazy. And
yeah, I don't know, and I'm willing to give the movie a chance. Like, you can't, it's stupid to judge something before it ever comes out most times, but I kind of still sit on the side of the fence of like how Christopher Nolan did it in The Dark Knight. It's like, the Joker gives a couple of different, or Heath Ledger's Joker gives a couple of different origin stories, and it ultimately comes down to like it doesn't matter how he became who he is.
Yeah,
he's just the mystery behind who he is part of the appeal.
Yeah, I think that is definitely the case, especially with the Heath Ledger Joker. Like, that version of that, I remember when the first leaked images, or the first released images of Heath Ledger as the Joker came out, where he's just sitting in front of that wall. I'm like, 1, this doesn't look like the Joker. 2, this makes this look like a horror film. And it was ridiculous. And I think they know that with this movie. And I think the put on a happy face thing going on, and that whole, like, it takes place in the 80s, this film, but there's this, like, 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, like, retro-y aesthetic throughout the entire thing. Martin Scorsese is the producer of the film, and Robert De Niro is playing that talk show host, and I think they're going to frame it as Thomas Wayne, who's on TV, you see him in like a few of the shots, is going to be the bad guy. Whereas the Joker's the good guy in this, and the little kid he does like the smile thing with, that's Bruce Wayne.
Oh, you think so?
Yes, I think that's Bruce Wayne. Because he's outside of the mansion, and they're taking a lot from a bunch of different things, like the Killing Joke, like the Joker Who Laughs is one of the other comic runs. They're taking a bunch of little pieces from that and then writing their own kind of like sob story. That little kid is Bruce Wayne.
Do you think they're going to take the Tim Burton 89 version of Batman to where the Joker's character kills? Okay.
I think they will. I have a suspicion that this film, the final shot, will be the Joker walking up with a gun on Thomas Wayne and you see the kid. And I don't think they're going to show the bullet hitting. I think it'll end on that scene that we all know. Because we've seen them die 100 million times. I think it's going to end with the altercation, and that's how the film ends. Or it's going to end with like a bullet shot on like black.
Okay.
I just have a feeling like that's how they're going to close the film.
Yeah, this film could go a million different ways. It's going to be interesting to see how Todd Phillips does it, or he handles it, and how Joaquin Phoenix treats such a character that's really been like held onto by Heath Ledger's portrayal of it.
Yeah, I think the scene in the beginning where he's giving his mom a bath, where like it's like the put on. My mom always said like put on a happy face.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really interesting. What that reminded me of, just in a weird way, like this kind of Oedipus kind of complex, is when he played Commodus in Gladiator, where he's like really into his sister and stuff, and like there's this creepiness with his nephew. I just got that same kind of weird Joaquin Phoenix vibe, and then also the vibe of Joaquin Phoenix where he wanted to have sex with a cell phone in Her. That was like where he can play this creepy character so well. And he's such a fantastic actor that I think we're going to see him being skinny and weird and creepy and just doing that like, ha ha ha, laugh. And be like, oh, this guy actually went insane for this role. Good.
None of us wish, though, the same fate as what happened to Heath Ledger, though.
No,
like,
of course.
Stay healthy. Keep yourself actually mentally healthy there, Mr. Phoenix.
Because, that can be really scary, especially when you're diving into a character like this that is a crazy person, and, like, method actors who are, like, going to try to push themselves to that limit. That's the key, to the limit. Like, there's a very real, like, stake in that, and I think that's something that can't be understated, especially, like, when you hear of, like, Leonardo DiCaprio or like Daniel Day-Lewis like slept inside of a bear for 8 years to prepare for a role or something. It's like, okay, cool, like incredibly talented, good for you. But if you're playing an actual crazy person who's like a serial killer, how about you don't method act for that one?
Right.
How about you just do some research, maybe go to like a few prisons or something. Don't actually kill yourself or anyone else, because that is not, it's not okay. It's not good. It's not healthy. There's a line. And I think that's something that like we need to remember with actors. Like you see Christian Bale do it where he gains 95 pounds, or then he turns into like the scariest, skinniest dude for The Machinist, and then like bounces back and forth. You're like, how are you alive? But yeah. So let's hope the Joker is fantastic, or as good as I think it will be. Because the Joker is one of my favorite villainous characters in all of every media. I'm a huge Joker fan.
So am I. I hope that the origin story doesn't. I mean, obviously, one origin story isn't going to, or it shouldn't, ruin anybody's like take or ruin anybody's appreciation for a character. Like that's just one person's, vision of this character. That doesn't diminish, say, Heath Ledger's portrayal or Christopher Nolan's like take on the character. Yeah, whatever. It is what it is.
I think the only person who doesn't want this movie to succeed is Jared Leto.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be forgotten to the heap of failed characters, even though I really did not like that iteration of the Joker.
And I don't think that's his fault. That character is not his fault, because I really do think he gave that character his all. Like, Jared Leto, I think, did give it the old college try, but that was a weird movie. And to be sandwiched between Heath Ledger and then probably Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, I am so sorry, Jared Leto. You got the short end of the stick.
Yeah, I want to say it's probably a combination of Leto's his own interpretation, as well as David Ayer's writing or directing for Suicide Squad. Who knows? It was just bad decisions all around.
You heard that he mailed people like condoms and stuff on set, right?
Yeah, like used condoms and like dead animals and shit like that. And it's just like, yeah, I think that's the part where it's like going too far. Like if I was a co-star of his, I'd be like, knock this shit off, man. Like, I know you're trying to be method, but at the same time, there's a level of professionalism.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're working on a film. If you ever mailed me a used condom or like a dead rat, I'd be like, hey, Ben, can we have a chat?
Yeah.
I just got a condom in the mail from you. What the hell's the meaning of this? Like, that's kind of what direction that would go into. But yeah, so next piece of news. We have Bill Murray, new zombie comedy?
Yeah, it's Jim Jarmusch's take on zombies. It's called The Dead Don't Die.
You know what?
And I realized after looking up Jim Jarmusch's like IMDb, his directorial credits, like I've heard his name like thrown around as like a great director. I have seen like exactly one movie he's ever made, and it was Ghost Dog: The Way of the Samurai, was starring shit. Wow, I can't remember his name right now. Oh no!
I'm gonna keep saying a thing. Okay, so first, I thought I was sick of zombies until I saw this trailer. We're getting Zombieland 2 this year at some point. I actually like this trailer a lot. I like this.
Yeah, it looks funny, and that actor was Forrest Whitaker.
Oh yeah, okay.
In Ghost Dog, yeah. But this has like you said, Bill Murray, Adam Driver, Selena Gomez, a whole hell of a lot of other actors in it, and yeah, it just looks like it's going to be a good, fun, zombie comedy movie. Really, that's all we have to see right now. Is the trailer, but it looks perfectly good. Yeah,
I'm excited. I'm pumped. This has promise, especially because there's a big cast behind it, a really solid big cast. And you know what? Selena Gomez, I'm sure she's an incredibly talented musician. Like, she's incredibly famous. I've never seen her in a film. I know she has probably been in films. Maybe this is her trying to branch into a new thing. If so, let's see it. I'm stoked. It's always cool to see like a new face in like the film industry and someone who may have like a fun, interesting new take. So I'm open. And then next, this is a piece of news I don't give a shit about. Who is asking for this? They're making a Cats movie, like the Broadway play.
Right. And apparently all the actors and actresses are going to be portrayed as the size of like actual cats.
Yeah.
And not like the stage actors like on the Broadway play to where it's, full size human beings just in cat outfits. They're going to turn them into like CGI sized cats, which it just seems like that's going to look dumb as shit.
But besides the fact that it's dumb as shit, the story of Cats, I remember in grade school, I had to watch Cats on TV. Not on TV, like on one of those roly-any cart TV things that you had in grade school that had a VHS and it was a tube TV that didn't work. And I remember watching Cats one day and I'm like, probably 9 years old. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what is this? This is so weird and British, and like, it's so British. It is the most British thing ever. This makes Marmite look like McDonald's. If you don't know what Marmite is, I'm sorry for that reference. Do you know what Marmite is?
I've heard of Vegemite.
It's like Vegemite.
That's more of Australian.
Yeah, I think it's like Vegemite because I actually have Marmite here. I like Marmite. We're not talking about that. We're talking about Cats. Okay, the cast is also way too good for what this is.
It's like James Corden, Taylor Swift,
Idris Elba, Ian McKellen, Gordon Ramsay. What is going on? What are they doing?
Yeah, I've never actually seen any iteration of the show, so I really don't know anything about the story.
Okay, it's about a bunch of cats who try to bring another cat back from the dead. It's like there's a seance involved.
Cool. I guess. Like,
seriously.
And all I know is like one of the names is like Rum Tum Tuggler, which seems like the weirdest fucking name for anything.
Dude, there's a cat named Bustopher Jones. That's the greatest name of all time. Bustopher Jones, if I ever had a cat, that's what I'd name my cat. Just for every time you're like, yo, Bustopher. It's a laugh every time. But no, I don't give a shit about this news. Maybe it'll be good. It has a huge cast and a very talented cast. So maybe the script is the greatest thing of all time. I don't give a shit.
Maybe all these actors and actresses are getting their third or fourth home. And how much they're going to get paid for this.
Yeah, the producers went to all these people's houses and are like, here's a check and we're going to write a 9. We're going to write zeros until you say yes. And they're just like writing zeros and they're like starting to sweat. And Idris Elba's like, okay, I'll do it. He's like, oh, thank God it was only $9 billion. He's like, Gordon Ramsay didn't say yes for 4 minutes.
Idris Elba's, I think, trying to take over the mantle for being in everything over Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, he really is. And Idris Elba is like also one of those guys who might be James Bond. Please, God, be James Bond. Please, God. Idris Elba is James Bond. I'm shipping that.
We'll see. That's been kicking around for a long time. I want to say this is probably going to be Daniel Craig's last one.
Yeah,
Because he
Bond.
seems to be getting progressively more pissed off with this role. Like in each interview that he does, like for the press tours and all
Yeah.
that, like he keeps saying like, "This, I hate doing this shit," but he keeps coming back.
Yeah, I feel like the Broccoli family, the people who own the rights to Bond, are like, we want you, Daniel Craig, and Daniel Craig is looking more and more like a hot dog with blonde hair, and he's just like, no, I don't want to, and the Broccoli family is like, we'll give you more money, and he's like, I do like more money, and so that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Cats, and then for some reason James Bond. So what is our next piece of news?
Next, we have the first footage from It Chapter 2 was screened at CinemaCon. Apparently, very scary looking, and they brought out all the cast members, the Losers Club from like the older ones, like the kids, and then they also like brought them out with their
their
adult
older
counterparts.
The Old Spice guy is in this movie.
Wait,
the I'm on a horse.
Okay, I was thinking of the original, like Terry Crews, Old Spice guy.
No, it's the new guy. He's like, look down, now look up, now look here. That guy, he's in this movie. That's crazy. I didn't know he was like an actor, but I'm hype. This movie, if it's anything like the first one, fantastico. And then that's probably the news on that. And this comes out in October.
What's that?
This comes out in October, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have The Greatest Showman 2, which is happening. Yeah,
I think Hugh Jackman said that he thinks that there's definitely a treatment. It's in the works currently for it. But he said, at least in the interview, little snippet that I read, he's like, yeah, I think there's definitely a treatment, but I don't even know if I'm involved with it. Or he's like, I don't even know if like the character of P.T. Barnum is like the main focus of it.
But
so he seems like he's pretty well in the dark as much as anybody else.
You know what? That might be interesting. I think that's a story that we could continue and justifiably see more of.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah.
As long as they keep the music as catchy and as good as the first one, then I guess I'd be down.
Oh, 100%. And then you have a Greatest Showman tattoo, don't you?
I got a lyric from one of the songs. Yeah, in one of my tattoos. Yes, I do.
That's very cool. I like that. That's love for the game, and I appreciate that. That's what we're about here. When are we getting matching See What Sticks tattoos?
You're going to have to get me drunk.
Okay. We're going to do them on our faces like a teardrop. It's like, what's that? You have to look really close. It's like, that's my podcast. It's love for the game. And people are like, oh, you're an idiot. And you're like, yes.
You're a psychopath. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, it's like, I will be in the next Joker movie. So, next piece of news. There's a picture of Arnold in the new Terminator movie that I didn't know was happening, but now I want to know more about. It looks sweet. Let's see more of this. I'm assuming Emilia Clarke is not going to be in this one.
No. This is going to be called Terminator Dark Fate. Apparently, James Cameron is on to produce. It's being directed... Oh, I'd have to look that up. I forget who exactly is directing it, but kind of a lame name. I think Dark Fate. Like that seems like one of those just kind of generic. Like
that's the most 2009 name for a movie ever.
Yeah, but I guess it's going to be retconning everything after Terminator 2, which I'm all for because everything after Terminator 2 is garbage.
Wait, you mean Terminator 3 and Terminator Salvation aren't your favorite movies of all time?
I will hunt you down if you spread false lies like that. No, Terminator 2 is actually my favorite movie of all time.
I did know that.
And I think Terminator 3 was a goddamn disgrace.
Yeah. Also,
so, I'm like not really even cautiously optimistic about this one. I'm just like, okay, Cameron's on board. Linda Hamilton's back for the first time since number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Arnold, obviously, he loves doing this fucking character. But it's just like, well... maybe it won't be complete ass.
Honestly, if Linda Hamilton is back, for those of you who don't know, Linda Hamilton was in the first two. And she's probably just still doing like pull-ups in like that cellar or in that like cell. She's just been doing it for the last 25 years. She's just doing pull-ups, looking ripped, looking fantastic. You know what? I'm hyped. I love Terminator as a series. Even the shit ones, I do still like. But Terminator 1, I think, was one of the first rated R movies I ever saw that my parents showed me when I was a kid. And I remember seeing that, and I was like, the scene where with the eye and where he's like messing with his wrist and stuff. I remember seeing that when I was a kid, and I was just like, what? Because like he takes his skin off. And I remember that so vividly, being like whoa, because I've never seen anything like that.
That had to have been definitely like eye opening as a little kid to see that.
Yeah, and I remember seeing that, and then I remember finishing that movie and being like, whoa, that was something crazy. Like I had no idea how to take that in as a kid. And then I think very shortly after that, I saw Terminator 2. And I just remember the scene with Liquid Terminator, the shotgun blast to the face, and then coming back together, that scene. And then through the cop car, that, and then the freezing with the liquid nitrogen, those scenes stick in my head so well. And I just remember seeing that and being like, oh my God, how did they, like, because like when you're a kid, you don't realize special effects are a thing, and you're like, how the hell did they do that? Like, what is this? And I just remember that so vividly. And the chase at the beginning with Arnold, where you think he's a bad guy, but he's not. Spoiler alert for the one person maybe who's not seen Terminator 2. But like, oh my God. That makes me want to just get off this and go watch that right now, because it's a masterpiece. I love that. As much as I don't like James Cameron, I love it.
Yeah, Terminator 2, I could go on for hours about why I love that film so much. But it's Tim Miller is directing the next one. He was the director of the first Deadpool movie.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's some good talent behind this. That doesn't mean it's going to be necessarily good.
Yeah.
However, said before, I need to reserve my judgment until I actually see it.
Yep.
It's just very hard for me when the last 3 or 4 Terminator properties have been
not good.
Flaming diapers.
They really have. And for when you said Tim Miller for a second, I thought you said TJ Miller, who's a real life not good person, who was also in Deadpool 1. But yeah, and the last piece of news is Disney's 2019 lineup is like 30 different movies.
Right, and we're already a quarter of the way through 2019.
And it's ridiculous. And I'm just like, there's so many films on this list. There's a picture from, I think it's from CinemaCon, where it's like one of those, like, you know when Apple unveils a new thing, it's just like a giant poster, like a digital poster of all this stuff. It's just a Disney one, and there's like so many labels on there. And I'm like...
One that I didn't even know was in production was a live-action Lady and the Tramp movie.
Yeah, so...
I had no clue about that. I mean, it's not necessarily surprising because, you know, they're doing this to every single one of their old movies, but it's just like, wow, I had not heard anything about that up until now.
Yeah, I honestly... Lady and the Tramp, the 2 dogs are like schnauzers in Lady and the Tramp. I have 2 schnauzers. Or one of the dogs is a schnauzer. You know, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, Tramp is a schnauzer and Lady is a Cocker Spaniel.
Yeah, so I have 2 schnauzers. So, like, there's that whole thing. Like, my mom likes it. Or I think she does. I have no idea. I should go ask my mom if she likes that movie. She probably does. But good for them for doing this. Are they going to do CGI dogs, or are they going to do...
My guess is probably, like, that realistic-looking CGI. It's going to be really weird looking if they have them have, like, moving, talking mouths. Yeah. It's going to look like the Beverly Hills Chihuahua shit.
Yeah, because...
But, I mean...
Yeah.
But, like, special effects has come a long way since that, so, you know, maybe it'll be okay.
But the thing is with, like, lions or bears or other animals that they do Disney, you don't see them all the time. But, like, a schnauzer... a lot of people own dogs, or like schnauzers are a pretty popular dog to have. We know what those animals look like, and if you have them start talking, it's like, whoa, like, this is weird. Because, like, you can do animals that you, like, know in your head, like, more zoo animals or wild animals, because it's like, there's this level of disconnect there, but with a dog, it almost goes in that weird uncanny valley thing where you're like, this doesn't look right.
Right.
And apparently Dumbo has not been getting good reviews. That's the last piece of news.
My kids liked it. Apparently, they went with their mom, and they we saw a flying elephant. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed the film. Like, that's all that's important. I'm glad you enjoyed the movie.
My last piece of news that I got before we started airing is, speaking of James Cameron and Avatar and all that, Vin Diesel apparently through Instagram announced with James Cameron in a video that he is going to be in the next 4 sequels for Avatar.
Is he going to be playing an egg?
I believe he's going to be a Na'vi of some sort. Okay,
my biggest question is, who the fuck is asking for any more Avatar movies? James Cameron's been underwater in his fucking submarine for so long, he hasn't realized that we don't... Like, Avatar 1 was an anomaly. It makes me upset that I just said Avatar 1. Sorry. That movie was an anomaly. No one cares. The only thing I remember from that movie is they have sex with their hair, and they also pilot their dragons with their hair. So are they fucking their dragons? That's like starting your car with your dick. But that's not important. But that's like starting your horse with your dick. That's a different thing. Okay. What is this movie? Here's what
you seem very passionate about your dislike of both the Avatar movie and its upcoming sequels, as well as James Cameron.
Here's my opinion of James Cameron. He is a smart guy, but just like a lot of smart people and good creators, he has lost his mind. He has gone like... Have you ever seen Young Frankenstein?
Oh, yeah.
He's gone Gene Wilder in Young Frankenstein. He's gone full Frankenstein. He's gone full... He's just off the rails. He's Professor Frank in The Simpsons. He's just like gliving and just making crazy shit and doing CGI underwater. And also Sigourney Weaver's in the first one, and now she's a Na'vi because she died. And what the fuck was that movie?
Here's my take. I think that throughout most of James Cameron's career, people have been like doubting whether what he's doing at the time is a smart move. Terminator was like his big breakout movie because he did actually have a directorial credit for Piranha 2 before that. But like Terminator was like all well and good. Terminator 2, he had movies before or between Terminator and that. He had obviously Aliens, The Abyss. Mm-hmm. Aliens is fucking awesome. Everyone loves that. The Abyss is a really good movie too. It gets overshadowed by all his other filmography. But like for Terminator 2, it had a huge budget. It was going over budget. People were like, "What's this? Is this guy doing? Know what he's doing?" Titanic, especially, like that was. People were saying this movie's gonna be a fucking disaster. It's going way over budget, way over schedule. It ended up being the biggest movie of all time at that point. And then he didn't do another movie until Avatar, and people were saying the same thing, like this is gonna be a disaster. Releases this next, the biggest movie again ever. Mm-hmm. So I think that either Avatar 2 is gonna have the same fate. People are going to be like, is this going to, what are we doing here? Avatar, this was Dances with Wolves all over again. Mm-hmm. I think Avatar 2 is going to make it just as much assloads of money.
The thing is, I'm going to be honest, you're probably 100% right about that. I mean, the first statements note that's true. But I think the thing about Avatar is, yeah, you're right. It is. It's going to be incredibly successful. And I think what it is James Cameron is trying to find something to make that's not a comic book movie. He's making competition is what he's doing. Which, I applaud him for that. But they better do something with that marketing to get people to be like on board with that concept. Because otherwise people are going to be like, no, I don't want to see Blue Pocahontas again.
We'll see how these movies turn out. Like, I have to agree. I don't know if there's any justification as far as having like.
God bless you.
Excuse me. Holy shit. I don't know if there's any justification having 5 of these movies. Maybe he's got a grand scheme of a story planned out that really is going to be awesome. Who knows? I just don't see stretching this universe into 5 films.
Yeah.
But I would like to see Cameron. He's probably going to be dead after the 5th one comes out. Like,
Jesus Christ,
the dude's not getting any younger. I would like for him to do like another maybe original, like lower profile movie. And it's crazy for me to say that like True Lies is a lower profile action movie,
but it was
because it was still a big, like a bombastic, crazy ass action movie. And
I love True Lies. It's so good,
so good. But like I want him to do stuff like that again, like funny, like a hilarious like action like romance comedy, something like that. But what really helped in that movie too was
Arnold
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
In his prime too, and like no one has been as big as Schwarzenegger ever.
Yeah, and that movie was helped by Arnold, and then for some reason a jet fighter circling a building. It's awesome.
Yeah.
That movie is so redonkulous. It's the best. But no, I agree with you, and I think maybe Avatar. Maybe we're all wrong, and we're all going to be eating our words in 30 years when these movies come out. But I don't know. Like as of right now, unless there's a real course correction narratively, I'm not seeing it. And I could,
who knows?
If that comes out and it's like the most fantastic movie ever and wins every Academy Award like Lord of the Rings, Return of the King did, I will 100% be like, I was wrong. But yeah, that's kind of how I am on this one. Like maybe I will be 1 billion% wrong. But yeah, that's our last news thing. And we've gone way longer than we thought. So let's do our topic for this week, which apparently was the news. Let's do that and like just kind of touch on it. Ben, what is our topic?
We're going to be going over Game of Thrones as we have been for the past few weeks. But instead of doing season reviews, episode reviews, anything like that, we're going to touch more on the cultural impact that the show has had since its debut back in 2010, and basically where we've seen the cultural shift from then, where we see it going after the show is over. Basically everything there is to know or to talk about as far as how has the world changed since Game of Thrones has come around.
So I think since Game of Thrones has come around, unfortunately, I think we do have Joffrey Baratheon as the president. That is my one. That's my one. I'll get it out of the way. But I think it's interesting because before this, I think we had Lord of the Rings, which is my favorite film series and film of all time. Huge Lord of the Rings fan. As people who listen to the show know or know me know, big time Tolkien boy here. But I think this show did something different. It made high fantasy, which is the genre that Game of Thrones falls into, more mature. And it made it part of like this like societal, like it made it part of the lexicon of knowing what it was to be like part of House Stark, or what it was to be like an archer or a bowman, or like what it was like to say winter is coming. Like it's part of who we are now. And of course everyone knows Gollum and Smeagol and stuff from Lord of the Rings. Like if you go up to anyone on the street and say that, they'll be like, oh yeah, from Lord of the Rings. Or you can be like, say Sauron or Mount Doom. People would know. But I think with Game of Thrones, it did something so... It turned fantasy into like politics, into society, into everything. And not every episode is perfect, not every season is perfect, but season 1 did everything right first.
Yeah, it really did bring fantasy and like that high fantasy concept into the more acceptable, or it made it more acceptable among people that, and these kind of people can maybe be a little bit more insufferable, but folks that thought that like fantasy was like a kid's thing.
Yes.
Because you have Harry Potter that was for the most part like a children's fantasy series. It does touch, we've talked about before, it touches on some more darker and adult themes as it gets older, and as Harry gets older, and like all of our main characters progress through their lives. Lord of the Rings is kind of like that next step up, more mature, but still like it's kid friendly.
Yes,
it doesn't get into a mature enough level of content to where like any parent or most parents would probably be like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
When Game of Thrones came around, I mean, and of course the books had been around before the show, and people that were really big into like, fantasy literature knew about this series and were anticipating the show and like what HBO was going to do with it. Once Game of Thrones, the show, became such a huge, massive hit, I think people started to see that like, okay, fantasy can be for adults. We can deal with, like you said, politics. We can deal with violence, sex, all of these different things in a high fantasy realm.
Yeah.
And it feels like, a lot of people, and I'm not one of these people included in the folks that knew about the series before the show, but I'm guessing a lot of them were like, we've been trying to tell you people this.
Yes.
Like, why did it take a show? Why did it take a pair of visible tits on screen and beheadings for you people to listen to us?
And I think this show really did what you just said in a big way, like the sex position of season 1. I think that was like, it's a joke now, but I think the writers in season 1 knew, fortunately or unfortunately, that people are only going to watch this kind of thing if there's sex position to start off with, to get people hooked. Then you can show them a White Walker. Then you can show them a this. Then you can show them a that. And boom, it'll work. However, I think at the beginning they really had to like prove it to people that this was legit, which is so weird to think and so weird to say. But now that it is what it is and it's a reality, we're like, oh, obviously. But I think back then it wasn't. And I think in 2010, 11, we just started getting the Marvel movies. Nerd culture was still kind of whatever it was. But I think now, maybe it's because we're both older. And I don't know how it is when you went through grade school. For me, when I went through grade school, high school is a bit different. But when I went through grade school, being a comic book fan and loving superheroes and loving Lord of the Rings the way I did back then as well wasn't cool. But I think now, maybe if you go back and you're like more into that, you're so much more accepted. And I think Game of Thrones and Marvel and stuff really, really has done a lot for like being a nerd. And
yeah, absolutely. You could wear, any elementary school kid nowadays could wear a Lord of the Rings shirt or a Harry Potter shirt, and nothing, like no one would bat an eye.
Yeah.
Like somebody would probably compliment them on that.
Which I'm so happy about. And
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
I think if I was a kid now and I was the exact same, if I was me, but like back then, I would be like, oh, thank God, this is so much easier. But, I think even a lot of people I've spoken to recently, maybe it's just the industry that you and I are in, but being a jock or being that all-American football bro isn't as cool as it was. And I think the nerds have like started to rise, so to speak.
Either that or it's, I would say probably more the jocks or the cool kids, if you want to even like kind of label people that, they have found it easier for them to admit to themselves that they like this kind of stuff.
You know what? You might be onto that.
Because, they see that there's intelligent, good stories to be had from these types, like from fantasy or from comic books. People see, like The Walking Dead premiered around, I want to say the same year as Game of Thrones, and people saw that, oh, this came originally from a graphic novel or a comic book? Like, really? Mm-hmm. Like, this fucking crazy violent shit? Like, people started to realize that there's good things to be had from comic books, from fantasy novels, all this thing. And so it's becoming more acceptable to these different groups to admit that, okay, yeah, I do like these things. Whether they see that as a way of accepting people that are more of in like the comic book nerd groups or like the theater kids or something like that. That who knows? That might be just a perpetual sort of clique situation throughout middle school and high school that no one's ever going to change. But yeah, I think it's just become more acceptable to say that these things are, or you do like these things.
Yeah, and I think that's good. I don't think it should. No one in general, unless what you like is a negative thing, for some reason, I don't think anyone should ever look down on you for like your interest. And I think the fact that we have this, and we have it in Game of Thrones, and people know about dragons, they know about White Walkers, they know about dire wolves, it's better for everyone. And like people who can be like, if you're a jock, if that's who you are, you're an athlete. Like, I mean, I'm someone who goes to the gym every day and works out. And like, I don't think people would realize on face value that I'm like a guy who like is a co-host on a podcast and who has like a Lord of the Rings tattoo and all this other stuff. But you can be now, and like you don't have to be ashamed of that. Or like someone who goes to the comic book store after work and does that. Like, I think it's cool. Like, you can just go, like, say you're at a bar and someone asks you and you're like, oh yeah, this, and people are like, dude, right on. But I think maybe 15, 20 years ago you said that, they'd be like, get the hell out of my face.
Yeah, I think I want to say there was probably 3 things within the span of a year of like 2010 and 2011 that really set off like the nerd culture to be a more acceptable thing and like more cool and trendy. There was The Walking Dead coming out or premiering as a show, Game of Thrones as well, and then Skyrim as a video game. Like Skyrim was massive. It still sells. Like they'll still like Bethesda still tries to sell this goddamn game for $60 a pop, like on each new console that comes out in the last 2 years. That 3 combination of things that was so critically acclaimed and well taken in by pretty much everybody, I think is what really set off like nerd culture as being like an established norm.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, like, Ben, as you know, and other people who know me personally know, I've restarted playing Skyrim. And that's one of those things, maybe like when I was younger, I would be almost ashamed of saying that. Like, oh, like you're playing Skyrim again? But I'm like, yeah, what are you going to do about it kind of thing? Like, I love Skyrim. I'm a huge fan. And I think instead of if it's 2019, maybe it's 2007 or 8, and I was like, yeah, dude, I'm replaying this, like, RPG game that's medieval, that's like the kind of Game of Thrones-y kind of like vibe because rated M game, but still this. People were like, cool, have fun with all of your friends. But it's like, now it's like, oh yeah, obviously. Like, when you hear like Marshawn Lynch say something like, oh yeah, I went home and played Skyrim, it's like, it automatically all gets like legitimized. Yeah, and even things like Pokemon Go being one of the biggest mobile apps in the world. Like people, when I was in elementary school, when Pokemon was still on Game Boy, when all we had was red and blue, and maybe yellow, because I'm fucking ancient. Yeah, like there were people that would like turn their nose up at you, like fucking nerd. But now, like everyone and their mom was playing Pokemon Go. Yeah, and it is just like I keep kicking this dead horse, but it's more acceptable now because of this, tidal wave of kind of fantasy, horror, like sci-fi stuff that came in the early like 2010s. That it's made it just that much. It's made it okay to embrace these sort of more traditionally geeky, nerdy things. It really has, and I think it's better. And I mean, you're someone who has kids. I think it'll be easier for your kids to go through school with like bullying stuff. I mean, there's probably always different things to bully people over because people are the worst. But I think like if your kids are like, oh, my favorite movie's Terminator 2, and your kid's like 6 years old, other kids would be like, that's awesome. But like back in the day, if you said anything besides like, Remember the Titans, people were like, you're a nerd. And I'm like, get fucked. Like, oh, you don't like Fast and the Furious? Like, no, those movies are fucking stupid. Yeah, those movies are the worst, objectively speaking. And like, I think it is good for kids. I think it's good for a lot of people, and it's good for like any like workplace, because I think there's like this part of society where people had to feel like closeted nerds and like closeted in what you loved. And like, it's an escapism thing. And that's what cinema kind of is. It's like either telling the human experience and or escapism. And when people are like shaming you for enjoying that, especially if it's just a positive thing and you're not watching something negative or like aggressive towards any specific group of people, who cares? Just love what you want to love. And I think like YouTube has helped this.
How so? Like, what do you see YouTube's role?
So I think a big part of it is every time there's a new episode of Game of Thrones, there's a new episode of The Walking Dead, there's a new episode of Westworld or any show. There's 20 YouTubers, 30 YouTubers, 40 YouTubers who do breakdown videos. And then maybe you didn't even know what the show was, but you're on YouTube and that video is trending. You're like, The Walking Dead? And you're like a kid and you're like, you may not know. You're like, oh, wow, this YouTuber's really funny. And gets people into it that way. And it like builds that culture around it and that really kind of inclusive thing. Where Comic-Con used to be like it's Comic-Con. But now it's like going to Coachella. Like, it's 4 days of 10 million people there all dressed up to, like, freak out when they see, like, Jason Momoa on stage. Or you see, like, Kevin Feige. And people are, like, geeking out. And everyone's there for a positive thing. And I think that's super cool.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ran into anybody like this. I haven't because I guess I don't have a big group of friends that are kind of on the level of geeky nerdiness that I am as well.
Yeah.
But have you heard of much backlash from the traditional sort of fantasy comic book community? Like of, say, their take is like, oh, all these outsiders coming in to something that we have. Okay. Because I've been curious about whether that kind of backlash has been there, if it even matters either.
I think
the purists, I guess I should say.
Yes, I think the purists will always be the purists, but I think people like that, I'm like, cool, you were first to the boat. That doesn't mean you're the only one who should be on the boat. And I know quite a few people are like, dude, I hate that all these people are like now Thor fans, or like someone like me, or like when the new Lord of the Rings, the Tolkien show comes out, people are going to be Tolkien fans. Hey man, you're going to have like new fans. You're going to have people who are like bandwagon fans, but at least it's bringing more love and light to this thing that like you've been so like obsessed with in your like by yourself. Now you can go to a bar and watch Game of Thrones with people, or like I'm sure when the Lord of the Rings show comes out or the Witcher show or whatever, you're going to be able to go to a bar or go to a place and watch that with other people who you see eye to eye with on that level. And I think like when people complain about that, it's one of those like, we get it, you're a hipster about this, or we get it, you were here first. Kindly fuck off and enjoy it like the rest of us. Like, you don't have to be the biggest and best fan about everything. You know what I mean? And I think those are those purists who are like, oh, but do you know that in blank, blank, blank? It's like, dude, fuck off. Like, just enjoy it, and you can be the expert, but be cool about it, and just be like, hey, did you know that like this is like this, but this is why? That's awesome, because you're educating people instead of being a dickhead.
Yeah, if those kind of people can, instead of being an insufferable asshole about it, instead being maybe more of like a liaison to like the original content. Say like, oh yeah, like this was a really good episode of Game of Thrones. Like they did it a bit differently in the book. Like it's really cool in the book. You should check it out too. Instead of being like, oh, this is nothing like the book. Like, like that shit's so awful. Yeah,
I'm so glad. I'm so glad you agree with that, because it really can like take away from it people who are just like the absolute worst. It's like, okay, like we get it. Like, please kindly fuck right off. And I know like people are going to get upset with that, and people are going to be like, you're being not accepting of them. Yeah, you're right. Because I don't want to be in a place where I'm loving what I'm loving. All the people who are new to the boat are loving what they're loving. And then there's one dude who's like, yeah, I was here first. Do you want a fucking award? Just be cool. Be nice.
That's the nice part about this area of Game of Thrones, this TV show that we're in right now, because like you can't have those purists being like, oh, it's not like that in the book. Like those books haven't been fucking released yet. we are past the point of the books right now. So
Yeah,
you are going along with the ride, whether you like it or not.
And I love that. It makes me so happy. Because like everyone is now like
we're all on the same playing field. We're on a level playing field right now.
We really are. And it's incredible. It makes me so happy that everyone is totally like in the same like, oh shit, like book fans who've been like in everyone's face for the last 9 years been like, hey, well, did you know that Lady Stoneheart does this? It's like, no, we didn't. Like, it's like you cut the microphone, you're like, we're off the books. Like, literally, it's like, oh, well, in the books, Jon Snow didn't do this. And then, like, Dan and Dave are like, well, we just destroyed Jon Snow. We wrote him out of the show. How do you like that one? And then, like, George R. R. Martin's in the background. He's like, yeah, I guess it's okay. Because I think, like, the Game of Thrones show, I think you have to realize it's just sort of in an alternate universe to the books. It's an adaptation of the books. It isn't the books.
Right. It's like books adjacent.
Yes. But yeah. Do you have anything else to say about that? To rant on about, like, culture with it? Oh, also, here's my final question. What do you think is the next thing?
Like the next big thing as far as Game of Thrones, or just big like property that's going to take off like to the level of like Game of Thrones popularity?
Yeah, the next big thing that's going to... I mean, I know there's a spin-off for Game of Thrones. People are going to say that. What do you think is going to be the next thing to not like take the place, but to also join the ranks? Because I don't think
maybe
it's
like
Westworld.
To change the game.
Yeah.
Like to kind of shift the cultural like zeitgeist, I guess you want to say. I don't know, really. It's hard to tell what the community, what people will latch onto, because I'm sure that there's some TV shows that like executives thought were just going to be like you know unparalleled hits that people just did not choose to like. I'm sure that Dave Benioff and Weiss, the creators like and the adapters of the show Game of Thrones, I don't know if they thought that they were ever going to get this big.
You know what? I think you're right. I don't think anyone ever anticipated the success that has been found. And I think everyone is just like, well, this is weird.
Yeah. I can say probably with a bit of confidence that whatever the next big thing is, it's going to be from either HBO or Netflix, because that just seems to be where the big things have been coming from lately, like Stranger Things, Game of Thrones, The Sopranos was a big thing before it ended its run. These are your premium content providers right now. Mm-hmm. These guys are putting out golden stuff.
Yes.
Like Netflix is putting out a lot of things, and it's sometimes kind of hard to sift through how much they're putting out. But there's quality shows in there. Like outside of what of like the ones that are just uber popular, like Stranger Things.
Oh yeah,
I would actually like the Handmaid's Tale on Hulu. Mm-hmm. Absolutely love that show, and I would like it to be kind of bigger than what it is. Even though I think it's pretty big right now, but it's a very dark show.
Praise be.
I would argue darker than what a lot of Game of Thrones can be, because the implications of what happens in The Handmaid's Tale are pretty believable that they could happen.
Oh, yeah. Praise be. That's all I'm going to say to that.
Under his eye.
Yep. I do watch Handmaid's Tale, so I do know. We should talk about that on an episode. That actually that's a pretty dark thing to talk about, though. And I feel like a lot of people are going to be like, whoa, what the hell are you talking about? Because it's not super popular like you're talking about.
Yeah, like I know a lot of people do enjoy that, but it's like it's not on the level of like people will be at their TVs, on this day to watch it. Because I know Hulu staggers it out like every I think it's still every Wednesday when it's in season. Mm-hmm. They don't put it out all at once like Netflix does.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. The next closest thing I could have thought maybe to Game of Thrones, that was like different, that was a Netflix thing. Maybe Stranger Things, but that's probably wrapping up after this season anyway.
I want to say, maybe 2 more seasons, including the one that's coming up. Because those kids are getting old.
Those kids are getting old, but that has really taken like the world by storm. And that's really cool because it's another kind of genre-y thing.
Yeah, it definitely played on people's love of nostalgia, especially like 80s nostalgia, and I think that is running out now though. I
agree.
But yeah, to get back to your original question, I really don't know what's going to be like the big cultural hit next. Hopefully, what it is not trash.
I really hope so as well. And yeah, so Ben, do you have anything else?
Nothing else this week, and unfortunately, I don't have any recommendations this week.
I do. Barry, Season 2, Episode 1 came out every Wednesday, or every Sunday night. It's on. Game of Thrones is going to be coming up. That's my recommendation. Ben, do you want to steal the same recommendation?
Those are givens.
Okay, Ben, ours are Game of Thrones and Ben for this, or Game of Thrones and Barry for this week from Russell and Ben. I'm signing out, guys. We have a website. We're on Spotify. We're on Spreaker. We're on all those places. You know where to find us. Seriously, do it. Ben, sign us out.
As always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in with us. Hope to catch you next week. I am Ben. This has been See What Sticks, a podcast about everything and nothing. Everybody have a lovely week.